Hi, everyone. It's Teresa Green from Slow Paths Wellness, and this is Mindful Monday. Today, I wanted to talk about using mindfulness as a way of dealing with random thoughts and emotions that can come through. And if you're not mindful and not able to sort of manage them and understand what they're doing in your nervous system, they can be very distracting and cause problems. So, the first thing I wanted to say is thoughts and emotions are just kind of what our brain and body and nervous system do. So, walking along and having a stray thought of, oh, I forgot to do this, or what if this bad thing happens, or I wonder if this neat thing might happen to me, or oh, look, there's a pretty color, or I feel a little bit, just kind of a little wave of sadness go through, or a little wave of excitement go through. There's not always a reason for any of those things. It's just that that's what bodies do, bodies and minds and brains. As Brene Brown and Dan Siegel, I believe, also says, the brain and the mind are story making machines. That's basically a lot of what they do. And so sometimes they'll see a few random things that are kind of strung together, like, it's a cloudy day and traffic's bad. And my boss didn't look straight at me when they said something to me today. And your brain will put that together into a story. Oh, today's a bad day. The thing is, it doesn't have to be. Just because your brain thought it for 5 seconds doesn't mean that that has to be true. And learning the ability to see your thoughts without engaging them is a really big part of mindfulness, and it's a really big skill with emotional regulation. The same thing is true with emotions. If every time something happens, if you see a puppy on the side of the road and they look sad, well, then you feel sad. Or if you see a little baby going, hey, and then you feel happy and you feel happy. Well, the happy ones are at least more pleasant, but that's kind of not being you. That's seeing whatever's going on from the outside and letting it define how you feel. And you can sometimes do the same thing with things that are not on the outside. If you just have a random thought in your head of somebody that you've lost in some way, either from death or the relationship ended, and you get sad, well, that's normal. If you decide to latch onto that thought and stay sad all day, that doesn't have to be normal. So the mindfulness practice for today is going to be noticing our thoughts, noticing that they are not us, and noticing that we can think pretty much what we want to. We just have to accept that our brain will also kick out random thoughts at the same time. So for our first thing we'll do is I want you to go ahead and just sit still and take a few deep breaths and just sigh them out. That makes you nice and relaxed, and it gives you a chance if there's any frustration or tension kind of in there, it helps get rid of it. So let's do one more. All right, now I want you to picture the idea that your mind, your consciousness, the part of you that is kind of able to control things that happen and decide what happens in what order. And that part doesn't always get to stay in control. There are things in our body, if you go into a fight or flight response, it literally disconnects parts of the brain so that the thoughtful, reasoning, logical part of your brain isn't able to exert as much influence, because when you're in a fight or flight mode, your body thinks you need to be running on instinct and fighting, flighting, freezing, doing something to save your life. The problem is often we get in fight or flight mode when there's actually nothing nearly that serious wrong, or the thing that may be serious and is wrong is not something that fighting, running from it, or freezing up on it is going to be helpful. So we want to try to help that logical part of our brain have control of things most of the time, be the one driving the car, accepting input from all the emotions, all the stray thoughts, all of the other nerves ending signals that come in from sensory input. But let the logical guy be the one in charge as much as possible, unless you literally are running from a bear or a lion or something. So if you picture one way to get this kind of ability to let your logical brain stay more in charge of things is to picture your mind as a blue sky. The blue sky is up there and it just is blue. And if you've been on an airplane before, you know that sometimes where you are below the clouds, if it's a rainy day, you'll see clouds. But if you get on a plane and the plane goes up and gets over the cloud level, that you'll be over a bunch of gray, sometimes ugly, thundering lightning clouds, but you'll be up in the blue sky. And so that's what happens with our thoughts and emotions. As our nervous system can be kicking out all kinds of stuff. It can be kicking out happy thoughts or sad thoughts or worried thoughts or sad emotions or angry emotions or fearful emotions or manic, happy, or all kinds of stuff. And up above all of that is your consciousness, is your brain, is your mind, is the part of you that's able to see things. So one of the really neat things about human beings is we can not only observe things, like we can observe the sky or trees or a dog or a cat or someone we love, we can observe ourselves observing that. So you can do a quick little exercise to kind of see that. So imagine yourself where you are right now. So I'm sitting in this chair. And now just in your imagination, picture yourself stepping outside of yourself and coming over and looking at yourself sitting in the chair or wherever you are. The thing is that's really weird and cool is you can do that. You can actually picture that. And that part of your brain that's picturing that is observing you, is observing yourself. And that is kind of, it doesn't seem as much like an incredible thought because most people have had that where, if you're getting up in front of people, sometimes you'll kind of picture how you must look in front of them, especially if you're a little nervous or self-conscious. Self-conscious, that's actually the entire point. If you're being conscious of yourself, you may be trying to either imagine how you look or imagine how you sound. You're observing yourself, and you're also sometimes trying to imagine yourself. So it's a really good skill to have, especially when it's in cahoots, if you will, if it's in cooperation with the logical part of your brain that's able to question those thoughts and emotions and feelings and decide which ones seem to be the closest to reality, because really none of our thoughts or emotions or feelings are 100% real because we have all of our interpretations of things built into them. So you're sitting in your chair, you're observing yourself sitting in your chair, and you're observing yourself, seeing your mind as that blue sky. Now, if you just focus on that blue sky, a thought will come up. I guarantee it, because our brains do that. So you're sitting there, imagining a blue sky, focusing on that blue sky that's in your imagination, and my thought is suddenly of a banana. I don't know why, but suddenly I'm seeing a banana. With the banana, I'm watching some of those things, like some of those cereal commercials that at least used to come on when I was a kid, where there's fruit flying through the air, kind of like different candies and things have things like that. I don't know where that came from. My mind just did it. Now, I'm not choosing to focus on it except for to share it with you as an oddball thing that my mind's doing. But if it were another thought, if it were something that some part of my emotions are attached to, like, I wonder if I did a good job with my last patient, then if I have an emotional response to that, where I'm fearing rejection or feeling like I'm incompetent or feeling like someone might judge me harshly in a way that because they don't understand something that about my job that I understand, and there'd be misunderstanding, any number of things that could happen. If I was worried about that, well, then that little random thought, I wonder if I did a good job just then, I can latch onto it. And as I latch onto it, my brain's making the story. What if I didn't do a good job? What if they're not happy? What if they never come back? What if everybody else that I treat never comes back? What if suddenly I don't have a practice because my brain made a random thought that one person doesn't like what I did? So that's what happens. That's how our brain can kind of hijack things. Our nervous system can hijack things and turn what's really just a random thought into an entire bad day. So that's why we go back to that blue sky. So my little random thought of maybe the person that I treated didn't get as much out of the treatment as I wanted them to is a little gray cloud. Oh, look, there's me wondering about that. Little gray cloud, gone. That's a really important part. The gone part is a really important part. And maybe as I'm having that thought, I remember when I was a kid and I wasn't the cool kid and I felt lonely and alone. Another little gray thought. Now I can latch onto that thought And then I can feel alone and lonely, and I can cry, and I can have all these big emotions that are basically over something my brain imagined. There isn't any basis in reality for it at all. Just my brain imagined it. And if I allow my nervous system to chase that little black cloud along, then I'll be upset over literally nothing. So I'm going to let that little cloud go on out of the way. Now, my brain might have another little random thought. Ooh, wouldn't it be cool if I made supper tonight and I made a squash salad and I had garlic and tomato and green pepper and onions and all the things that I really love in it. Well, that's a little white cloud. That's not a dark, stormy cloud. That's a happy cloud for me. And I go, ooh, I really like that idea. So I might grab that one. I might follow that cloud a little while to make a few more plans. I might actually turn that cloud into reality by deciding to do that for supper. Or I may think, oh, that sounds really good, but I don't think I'll do that. Or at least I won't worry about it right now. The point of all this is that's your blue sky. And really, they're your clouds too. And you can choose to focus on the blue sky or to focus on the clouds. And if you focus on the clouds and you're not doing it mindfully, you're not choosing to focus on those clouds. Because like when one of my clouds that goes by is, I did a really good job today on something. Well, that's a cool cloud to hang on to. If I choose to hang on to that one, I'm helping my brain look for more clouds like that, so that it's more likely to generate those kinds of thoughts and emotions on its own. But if you're not mindfully doing that, then you can have your whole day hijacked because a car drove by that looked like a car of someone that you used to know, and that person wasn't nice to you, and now your nervous system has attached a whole emotion to that, and you've decided just to follow that little cloud into a tornado. Now, in the world of self-compassion, it's also important to say you have the ability to choose those thoughts. You have the ability to focus on that blue sky and recognize that the thoughts, even the good thoughts, are just things your mind has conjured up and they're just going on by. But you may not do it perfectly. If you've spent your entire life, however old you are, all those years, just chasing those little clouds, it's not second nature to let them go. And that's okay. That's part of life. That's part of growth. That's part of emotional regulation training, is learning to separate yourself from your thoughts, separate yourself from emotions. It's not feeling them, and it's not trying not to think them. So if you have a little sad thought go by and you think, oh, you know what? I really miss something from my childhood. Or I missed something from my childhood. There was something I wish I had gotten that I didn't. It's okay to think about those thoughts. It's okay to cry about them. It's okay to spend quite a bit of time dealing with them because they're coming up for a reason. And it may be that it's something that you need to think about, you need to talk about, you need to wonder. I wonder if this thing that I missed, that I am either missing from my childhood because it was something nostalgic I enjoyed, or something I missed in my childhood that I wished I could have had, I wonder if that's affecting me today. I'm going to sit with it for a minute and think about that. So it's okay to think about it, but it's choosing to do that. When you choose to think about it, then you can think about it when you have an afternoon and you want to go and you think, oh, you know, I used to really like to color, which is one of the things that I really like to do. And I don't draw well and very well. I'm frustrated when I try to draw, but you give me some crayons and a coloring book and I go back to my inner 5-year-old and it's great. So I do that. So I set aside some time to do that because it feels like it connects to happier times in my past, times in my past that were very happy. And those happy times make me feel happy today. And that's perfectly great. So if you're choosing to do it, then you can leverage it. But if you're not choosing to do it, then what happens is instead of you thinking, oh, I have 30 minutes to spare, I'm going to do something fun like color, then you end up in the middle of a meeting suddenly remembering something horrible that happened to you in your childhood and you kind of have to relive it. Now, another quick caveat is if you have PTSD, if you have been in a very abusive situation, and that's what your nervous system defines. So something you say and someone goes, well, that doesn't sound so bad. If it was bad for you, it was bad. It doesn't matter what the actual circumstances are. Then it may be that your nervous system is overwhelmed And so learning how to handle that is a skill that you may be better off learning with the help of a therapist, because when our nervous systems get overwhelmed, they can kind of take over. Remember that what I told you about your fight or flight system takes over if you actually are being chased by a bear? They can take over. And there are skills you can learn. Mindfulness is one of those skills. There are things you can learn to help your body get out of that fight or flight. And then again, you get your logical guy back in the driver's seat, and then your logical guy can say, "Oh, we are going to deal with that trauma. We are going to deal with that pain, just not in the middle of our business meeting." And then you can make time to go to your therapist, and that's exactly what you'll do. You'll take the bad memory that you have. You'll take those random errant thoughts, and you'll give them a chance to separate them, so that the next time something happens that triggers that thought, you'll be in a little bit better place to say, wait a minute, this is a trigger. I can choose whether or not I'm going to work with this or not. Now, what does all this have to do with Chinese medicine? Because while I am a life coach, I am also primarily a Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist. Well, each of the 5 elements in Chinese medicine corresponds to a distinctive emotional pattern. So the wood element, which deals with liver and gallbladder health as defined by Chinese medicine, deals with anger and creativity. Other things too, but we'll make it sort of simple. The heart and small intestine deals with thought in general, logical thought, and kind of a feeling of camaraderie and not working with other people, being with other people in a social setting, and happiness and joy, as well as anxiety. Earth, and my brain's kind of trying to remember stuff. So earth is the spleen and stomach section. They deal with your sense of self, your ability to focus on something, and when it kind of goes off the rails a little bit, to obsess on something and to feel contentment. Metal element deals with lung and large intestine, and that deals with your sense of ability to let go of things. So that's part of the kind of creating a boundary thing, is what you keep in and what you let go. Also deals with grief and with sadness and nostalgia for the past, and kind of using the things from the past to help the future, or to be held back by the past so you can't help the future so much. And then the water element deals with the kidney/adrenals and bladder, and it deals with the unknown, which can be both the fear of the unknown and using the potential of the unknown. Now, all of those have a really important part to play in your life at different times. But when you're kind of let go of the driver's control, when you let your emotions and your nervous system manage that, then you have those emotions can affect your health. If they're just kind of in a runaway train of fear or anger or sadness, then the organ systems I told you they're attached with fear, it's kidney, bladder, adrenals. With anger, it's liver and gallbladder. With sadness, it's lungs and large intestine. And each one of the organ systems has their own emotional things they're connected with. Well, it can eventually affect those organ systems. So if you're angry all the time, eventually it'll in some way or the other affect something that in Chinese medicine we associate with liver and gallbladder. It may be the literal organ. It may be where the meridians run there. In Chinese medicine, we say that the eyes are connected to the liver and gallbladder, so it could be something with your eyes. It will eventually affect that. So getting your logical guy in the driver's seat, getting your blue sky above you, and choosing which one of those little clouds that goes by you're going to focus on, which ones you're going to let go by, is a really important thing to help you with your health. It helps you to have a better stress response. The more often that you choose the pretty cute puffy white clouds instead of the real bad stormy clouds to go through, the more often your brain will make more of those cute puffy clouds, and they make healthier chemicals in your body that help prevent illness and help with your immune system function and make it easier to sleep, and they do all kinds of wonderful things. So today on Mindful Monday, we talked about thinking of your thoughts and emotions as going across the blue sky of your consciousness, and that the blue sky of your consciousness is a constant. The other things go by, and they may only last a couple seconds. And so the important skill is to learn to observe yourself, observe those thoughts, observe those emotions, so that you can choose which ones you want to give your focus to and give your attention to, so that you don't have your day ruined because you had a little emotional blip go by. And instead of just saying, oh, hi, little emotional blip, off you go, you get upset and have just that whole day just, churn and be unhappy. And then we also talked about how developing that skill makes it easier to do. That if you have something that's overwhelming, whether it's a thought pattern or emotion pattern, that there are things you can do, there's skills you can build to do that. And it might be a good idea to talk to a therapist or at least a coach to help you with that. Because if something's really overwhelming, then doing it on your own is going to be really hard, because you're trying to fight a pattern that you developed, plus possibly the belief system that you can't help yourself. And having someone to be able to just kind of help you get right back to the idea, okay, let's observe what's going on. Let's notice this without responding to it. It's a very helpful thing to have. And then, of course, that being able to manage these emotions is really good for your overall health. Emotions/thoughts is really good for your overall health and for any health conditions you may already have. Managing emotions and thoughts can actually make a difference in that. They can help chronic pain. It can help things like the endocrine system to work properly, which can have an impact on things like diabetes and things like PMS and things like that. And there's even a lot of talk that says that the cumulative effect of managing your emotions can have a big impact even in things like cancer. So for Mindful Monday today, we talked about the blue sky of our consciousness, and recognizing that thoughts and emotions and the little stories we tell ourselves are transient parts of that we can choose what we're going to do with, whether we're going to focus on them or not. So have a lovely, lovely day, a lovely Mindful Monday, and I will see you next week.